Going to start with our first series discussion, and we decided to go with RWBY primarily because the new season's going to be out soon, and this is going to be like our last chance before it's no longer the complete series anymore, and we have new content to work with. Now, I am Nicholas, also known as Arrow. This is Fawn. Say hello, Fawn.
Hello, also known as Kojika.
There we go. All right. So let's start from the beginning of the series. Now, because of the nature of this series, we're not going to discuss too much as far as especially the early stuff, the technical end of it, or the animation, or things like that. Gonna stick primarily with story and narrative aspects of it. A bit of a bias, admittedly, but I don't want to be overly critical of the animation of what I'm guessing is a absurdly small studio.
Yeah, it really is. They're bigger now than they were, but
yeah, I know when they've grown since like their initial days, but initially it was like, I think, half a dozen people working on the thing.
I think even at the start of, or with RWBY particularly, because I know they were running other series concurrently, I think it was still about the same working on it initially, as far as the actual modeling and things like that.
Yeah. All right. If we're going to start from the very beginning, I actually had a friend who was they were mentioning what they consider to be the worst scene in the entire series.
Huh.
And I think it would be a good starting point because they thought the worst scene in the entire series was the first scene in the entire series, where we have the run-in between Roman and RWBY.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if I'd say that was the worst scene, but I can understand.
I personally wouldn't, but I mean...
Yeah, I would say it was the only thing that I could see that stood out that would make it bad in any form to me personally is the fact that it was kind of disjointed from the rest of the series. However, that's how a lot of introductions to any kind of, you're talking book, movie, whatever. A lot of the times the first scene is the whole, let's get characters in, let's do some world setting before we actually throw you in how the world setting and everything relates to the story.
Plus, from my understanding, initially that was supposed to be it. Like, Roman was never supposed to come up again after that scene. That was it.
Yeah, but he kind of reminds me of a cockroach. You can't kill him. I like him, don't get me wrong, but...
Yeah, it's... From what I understand, it's pretty much exactly the same thing that happened with Sokka. Sokka in Avatar was originally supposed to be a very minor character, but because of the great performance the voice actor gave, the character was so well liked that they found a reason to make them more important and keep them in the story.
Well, I'll say in both cases, with both Roman and even Sokka, it's not even just the voice acting, because their voice acting is well done, but it's also the characters themselves just have a lot to offer, and there's a lot you want to see doing it. And both of them kind of play a more comical relief end of it, but at the same time, especially Roman, because he is a villain, you've got this underlying where he's a lot more intelligent than he appears to be 99% of the time.
The big thing with him is he is an enjoyable villain. He is the kind of villain you like doing villainous things. You just like watching him go.
Yeah, he's the kind of villain that I wouldn't mind running into at like a coffee shop. I mean, yeah, he'd probably try to destroy it, but...
Yeah, the main complaint that my friend offered was not that it was disjointed, as much as it seemed to it stretched her suspension of disbelief, since you're talking about Roman was a high-profile criminal. I mean, even from that initial setup, he was that. Yet, he's able to walk down the street with an entire gang behind him, and no one really even seems to bat an eye until he's basically pointing a gun at someone's head.
Well, based on what I understood throughout the entire series, if you look, a lot of the normal public does not know what these enemies look like. So but
he was in the news. Remember, that was like episode 2.
Yeah, but even so, I would say he still, where he was even walking and stuff, a lot of the areas are, they're just more like public. And I mean, think about it. He doesn't stand out that much physical appearance-wise in that world.
Well, not compared to like a lot of the other characters, no.
No, he's actually...
Okay, just some minor technical hiccups. So you were talking about him standing out.
Or his lack thereof. He's a very overlooked presence, and that's kind of part of his power, is that he's very good at laying low and being very subtle.
Speaking of that, that just reminded me of something else that we never ever found out about Roman.
Huh.
We never found out what his semblance was.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's supposed to, like, everyone who produced Nora, and there's no way he would be able to fight like that without one, so...
I mean, to be fair, I guess it's very rare to think about it, especially in that setting, but that might be his, secret, is that he has no semblance. That might be why he's able to overcome a lot of these obstacles, just because, everybody's looking for something else and he's never giving it to them because he doesn't have it.
So I think it's something like, because he doesn't have anything extra, he has to be the best, like, hand-to-hand combat and weapons, all that stuff. Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of the setting, I mean, we're also talking about a place where a young girl can walk into a store with a gun.
Yeah, well, that's just it. It's kind of one of the particular setting that they have going with RWBY, especially in the town that they're around and their Beacon Academy is around. They obviously don't really question much.
Yeah.
They're more likely to question somebody with cat ears than they are to somebody with a giant gun.
True. Well, alright, I guess we should move on, beyond just the initial opening scene.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it did overall do pretty good at, introducing characters in turn. As you've mentioned to me before, a bit predictable. I mean, like, there was no question about who was going to end up on, whose team during, the initial meetups of different characters.
Yeah.
Like, in 5 seconds... The first time you met John, you were like, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to be a main character. Well, secondary character.
I kind of like the fact, though, that they introduced him so early, especially into, like, RWBY's, personal... I don't know... personal thing. I'm blanking on words, but I like the fact that they brought him in, and he was probably the first character you got introduced to after her, and he's not even on her team.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool that they did that instead of being like, oh well. And I mean, yes, both Yang and Vase came up really fast, but it still wasn't that they weren't the first ones to get shoved on RWBY. It was actually John.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that they didn't do too much with the interactions of those two together, beyond... They don't interact too much beyond that, like, initial meeting, really.
Well, they obviously are gearing towards that with the end of Season 3, which will be really cool.
Yeah.
I really would like to see some more of Juniper, period, because, I mean, I feel like Jean and Pyrrha have gotten everything, and I love those two to death, but I don't know much about... There's not much I can say about Ren, especially. Nora, you get a little more in, but once again, she kind of is just their tank on their team, and that's all you really know about her.
Well, I think part of Ren's character is that there's not supposed to be too much of him beyond that,
Well, I feel like there is, but I feel like the reason that he is so, quiet and calm is because he's a balance to Nora. And even their color schemes are kind of contrasting.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing there.
Well, as soon as you saw those characters, it was... I mean, speaking of Juniper, now those were team-ups I wasn't, like, really... They weren't obviously going to do that. I mean, I guess in the sense that we knew, just by looking at the title, I mean, obviously the members of RWBY were going to end up together, and since they were pretty much the only other 4 people you saw, obviously they were going to end up on a team, but...
It's
not disbelief.
Yeah, I feel like RWBY's team is more like... If you were to have them in separate characters and have more characters, you probably would have been able to pick out RWBY's team easier. Whereas Juniper is a little more scattered, even with personalities and skills. It works well for them because they're able to use it, and I mean that's kind of the fun thing with that group. But not that RWBY's has a lot of the same things either, but you still have similarities between some of the characters and their fighting styles that it works for them. But it's also really obvious that they were going to work well together. And I mean, even the split, like, from the get-go, it's pretty easy to tell that they were going to do the split with Waze and RWBY because they had their whole they had their whole conflict on, which means that they're going to have to end up best friends by the end.
Yeah. Now the oh man, what was it? Oh, right. So, now, if we're talking about a bit of discontinuity, and this is part of the problems with what they did with Roman was also you never see his gang again, like ever, in any context at all. There's no like nod that they even existed. They basically just evaporate into nothing.
Yeah.
It's I mean, they could have just like in addition to the White Fang, there's also his own gang of people within them, like you have both. You already have the character models, and like it's gonna be that complicated.
I almost feel like where RWBY was going initially isn't where it ended up with a lot of
Definitely not. No way.
I mean, it's like early on, some of the things you could tell they were headed towards it, but at the same time, there were things, especially in season 2, that I don't want to say that they were hard to predict, because that's not true. And I mean, like I said, I feel this series is very predictable, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's well done and still enjoyable. But there were some things that
it's like high-end spoilers. The ending was predictable to the point it damaged it.
Yeah.
Like the end of season 3, yeah, I would say that. I mean, most of the series, no, but the end of that particular season, yes.
There was, I guess personally, it didn't help any that when I finally got around to marathoning it all, I had already known about all the characters that die. What I found was weird is some of the ones that they considered confirmed deaths. Like, I don't confirm those. Like, for instance, Roman was one of the ones that was listed as confirmed, and I'm like, dude, that's not going to kill him. It's Roman. He'll be back.
Wait. What do you mean that doesn't... That seems a pretty confirmed death to me.
He just got eaten and disappeared. That doesn't mean he's dead. This is Roman we're talking about. If it was another character, or if it had been done in a more climatic way, it was almost too comical for the scene. And I think to me, that actually made it less than obvious that
here's the reason that I believe that is definitely a confirmed death. Because Roman was not originally supposed to be in the series.
I can understand that, but at the same time, he's kind of become more important. The weirdest way to describe him is like he is like Jesse and James in Pokemon.
I mean, all right.
He's a recurring villain, and he is actually a lot easier to deal with than the other villains. He hasn't really had the opportunity yet, but I could see them potentially, if they do decide to bring him back, to actually use him in a scene eventually where he has to like do a team thing with RWBY.
All right. You know what? So since we're getting into this aspect, let's go on. First of all, to be clear with anyone that for some reason is listening to this but has not gotten through RWBY yet.
Oops.
Complete and total spoiler aspect here.
Yeah.
Full stop. Let's just jump to the end. And my biggest complaint about the deaths that took place in RWBY is simply you kill off the most interesting characters in your entire freaking story.
The only death that I felt was warranted and well done was Penny's.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it was one of those. It was.
Although if there's now, if you want my opinion of who is most likely to not be confirmed dead,
it would be Penny.
It would be Penny.
Yeah, because she is a robot and she can be
rebuilt. They set up so much. Or at the very least, they're probably going to do like Penny 2.0 or something. I mean, there's no way they would have done all that setup, all that background stuff about her creation. The only time you see her creator is like a scene immediately following her death, and that's it. They set up way too much for her to just be gone. And if she is just gone, then that's another complaint about the series, because you set up all this stuff and never paid on it.
I mean, I could see you could still work with it and not actually bring her back, where you could still work with some of that stuff, but not all of it. Because there was a lot of the whole, the cyborg thing was kind of getting brought up, and they were skirting around it at this point because Penny was the only one that had obviously any connection to it, and RWBY with that was the only one who really had a deep connection with Penny, but it was still not a big thing for the plot. However, we know we are probably going to go into Yang getting a prosthetic arm, so that would be the time when stuff like that, because obviously they have prosthetics because, oh god, what's his name, Mercury?
Yes.
Yeah, he's got two.
I will say, but the only thing about that is the way they presented it kind of gave me the impression that those kinds of prosthetics aren't common, or at least aren't. They're not well known or not common enough for somebody to.
Oh, I totally agree with you. It doesn't seem to be. I mean, the fact that nobody. Well, I mean, to be fair, if you punch somebody in the leg and it exploded, your first thought wouldn't be, "Oh, you must have a robot leg."
In that series, my thing is you have some kind of boot gun. That was my first assumption. Whenever we fought, that was my assumption.
I mean, that's just it. But yeah, and I mean, obviously, it was to strain the most optimistic. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I think Yang is even more optimistic than RWBY, or especially in like a lot of the stuff that happened in season 3 prior to the whole let's be emo at the end because I have no arm now and I lost horribly. Although in her case, I don't see what I see that upsetting her is not even the loss of the limb or the fact that she lost. It was the fact that she felt helpless in a situation that ended up injuring comrades and had a lot to do with her life.
There, if we're gonna, all right. So talking about Yang's last fight of season 3,
yeah,
that bothered me for some. She just got punked like nothing. It's.
Well, it's
I'm
also,
seeing.
It just everybody believed it so, and I mean, I know they have video and stuff, but I feel like even some of the people that you would have expected be on her side were questioning her.
Yeah, it's. What really ruined it for them, okay, was the fact that Coco, I'm pretty sure that's her name, she saw it. She saw it, like, he actually used the illusion during that fight.
Yeah.
It was a known thing. They should have been able to put 2 and 2 together and realize something was going on.
Well, and you also had that later on, RWBY saw that he freaking was standing back up, and like that never got brought up the fact that she realized that he was okay. And
continuing on that, they apparently made up this entire story about how their whole team went back to wherever they said they were from. Yet Emerald came back for one thing.
Yeah.
Mercury was specifically told, lay low, don't do anything. He just walks around. Why? Like, why even set that up? Why make up the story about leaving if Emerald had to still stay there and be in attendance at the stadium in order to keep doing her whole illusion thing?
I'm assuming the thing with Mercury was done more for the audience's point of view, because you do have some people who unfortunately will not get obvious stuff, so you have to spell it out.
That plan was just, they not only overcomplicated the plan, but they then ruined their own plan due to their own overcomplication of it.
Yeah, that group of villains, I mean, they're interesting individually, but they're kind of horrible for villains because there's almost too much going on at every point.
Yeah,
I mean, like, there's things that they've done that I really thought were good villain thing, but, like, yeah, that whole final, like, the tournament arc and stuff was just kind of like, you guys are making this a lot more complicated than you needed. You could have simplified it and gotten out faster and done stuff quicker.
I mean, they did all these complicated plan things to set this thing up to begin with, and then such simple, stupid mistakes are what screwed them over. Not really screwed them over. I mean, they succeeded, but they easily could have failed. I mean, if RWBY could have just got in the way, good chunk of your plan's just ruined right there.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, she obviously eventually did, and one of those, during the initial thing, it would have been kind of hard to go tell everybody what happened, but after it settled down, I just don't get the feeling that she ever told anyone.
No, she didn't, no.
And that's more of an issue. I mean, I get that there was a lot going on and they had a lot to wrap up, and it's kind of like there were all these that was a major loose end that never, in my opinion, got.
And now I get that this kind of thing is a bit of our benefit because we are the audience and we are aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But because of the nature of semblances, there should have been at least somebody thinking, like you said, that there's something fishy going on here. I mean, even if it wasn't necessarily an illusionary effect, it could have been some sort of hypnosis, some sort of mind control. It could have been something and manipulating her emotions.
It could have just been. It could have even just been a simple party trick. It didn't even have to go as far as like magic and semblance and stuff. It could have just literally been, think about some of the stuff magicians can do in real life. And we saw
the perspective of what other people saw her do, and I mean that behavior is incredibly out of character. It seemed out of place. It was completely pointless. At least the people closer, they should have been suspicious, They should have been wondering they should have been thinking something's going on.
Instead of automatically just thinking something was wrong with Yang, which is what most of them thought. Like, there's a lot of other holes you guys are missing there.
Even if there was something wrong with Yang, it would have been reasonable to conclude that there's something wrong with Yang because someone did something to her, not because she happened to go insane at that particular instance.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting with the stuff, like, looks like the lead and stuff from the 4th season, because we know at the end of the 3rd season, she's kind of moping around and really angry, and like I said, to me, it's more like, it's just the way the defeat was handled, not so much that she lost. I'm just kind of worried that they might go with the whole trope of, that standard trope, everything is horrible, I'm going to be like a horribly emo, moody person for the entire season, and well, that's not necessarily always a horrible thing. I think with the character like Ying, I just personally see her as being somebody who would be able to recover from that a lot faster than most people.
Yeah, it would be nice to see her and I hope she doesn't. Actually, I hope she doesn't get a prosthetic, because we need, in series overall, you don't really, well, nowadays you don't have as much of people that flat out have a handicap. There's no, like, magical or mechanical way to remove it. They just have to deal with it,
Which, I mean, it's, the prosthetic arm, of course, is cool, because I love that kind of stuff. But yeah, it would also be really interesting. I don't know if I see her character as being the type to be like, this is my punishment or whatever, I'll accept this and work around it, because actually, to be fair, I would have seen, like, PETA being more likely to handle that without it. I see Yang as being more like, I need to get in there and use whatever resources are necessary kind of thing.
I'm starting to wonder if we should, you know what, I think I know a good way in order to do this particular thing, because a lot of issues tend to come down to characters. We should probably go in order of character and how how the story has just completely screwed up with them.
Okay. I guess we should probably start with RWBY?
Yes, although, honestly, besides doing some stupid things, like, the whole not immediately, like, freezing up and not reporting Mercury, I mean, she did, I don't know,
she's probably to me,
she's probably the least ruined out of everything.
I feel like a lot of her reactions are very natural, which is good, because you have unfortunately, we're dealing with fantasy type characters and stuff, but it's hard for people to relate unless the characters have very realistic reactions, and she tends to have very realistic. She's still a kid, she still screws up.
Yeah, she's the youngest, so
she does try to make up for it, but she doesn't always succeed either. I like the fact that she's not the whole clear-cut winner, or she doesn't have everything come out perfect. She's had loss and things, and she copes with it fairly well, but she is still just a kid.
There is one issue, I think, about RWBY, and this would probably be the issue with RWBY, period.
Okay.
She has main character syndrome.
Yeah, well...
It's people have, like, levels of complexity and motivations, and her, it's just natural. She's just inherently the kind of person that would be a huntress. They even say that in the series. She just is. It's just the way she is, the way she's going to be. There's, like, never any doubt, never any concern. That's just her.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, they're going to be it looks like they're going to be building into that too, with the fact that because Ruby's mother was a hunter, right?
Both of they all
I
were.
know Ying's was for sure because obviously she's still running around, but I know Ruby and Ying have different mothers and the same
Oh,
father.
oh wait, you didn't notice that?
What?
Both of their mothers, their father, and Crow were all on the same team.
I didn't realize the second one was. I knew
Yeah.
Ruby's mother was, and Crow and the father. I didn't realize that was Yang's mother. I didn't. To be fair, I wasn't looking. I mean, it didn't ever sit with me the fact that they didn't have the same mother until it actually was more of an open thing. Only because you know how many times in different series where you'll have a character with pink hair and a character with like green hair, and yet they're siblings. It's the blonde and the dark hair, and especially
It's well more because, from my understanding, the way it worked. So first was Yang was born, then the mother had to be really, really short after her birth because they're not that big. There's not that big of an age difference.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it only like a year or two at most?
I think 2. Maybe only
Because
a
I
year.
think I was gonna say I know Yang's not that much ahead of her in school, and I know Beacon Academy is a little different than normal schools, but it looks like even the fact that Yang has been there for a while by this, or at least he knows people there.
The only other thing I can think of is if they are into some real progressive, like, non-monogamous relationship thing going on here, because the way it would have to be set up is pretty much immediately after Yang's mother left, then he would have had to have hooked up with Ruby's mother.
Yeah. I think it's another thing a lot of times when they're doing like any kind of story writing, they don't always consider the fact that it's not just, hey, this kid was born a year later. You have to consider that it takes 9 months to have a kid. So that means the relationship to have said kid has to have started sooner. Assuming we don't find out later that, like, Ruby's not even his kid or something. Which is still a possibility. I don't see that one being a very high possibility, but they could always do something like that where you find out one of the two is actually not blood related to the father.
They could go that way. But then you have to explain, well, then who's is the father then? Unless you want to go into, I would be so upset to go with she was just pregnant for mysterious reasons because she's Jesus or something.
To be fair, the most obvious to go if you were going to use a different character that's already in there would be Crow. But I just don't see that at all.
Then that makes the whole relationship thing even more complicated with Yang, though, not simpler.
Yeah, which at this point I don't, like I said, I think it's more of a, whatever relationship the father had with Yang's mother wasn't a very tight-knit relationship.
Or heck, as far as we know, maybe he was cheating on her to begin with, and that's why she actually left.
Yeah, we don't know too much about we don't know too much of the relationship from either one of the standpoint, and we tend to, and the fact that the father raised the kids, we tend to look at the mother as the more negative one because she obviously abandoned her kids.
It seems like the dad just gets completely sidelined. And how long before we even see what he looks like?
We did, yeah, I was gonna say we finally got to see what he looks like in, was it season 3?
I think it was season 3.
Yeah, I don't think we did until season 3. We got to see the dog before that.
Yeah. The dog, incidentally, completely superfluous to the entire story. I do not know why they...
It's a cute mascot thing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just more or less their cute mascot. And it did some very minor character development for both Ruby and Waze, but it's stuff that they could have done without that dog in there, so...
Yeah.
It's cute. Don't get me wrong.
There's a lot of times where a character is introduced just because they wanted it. Neo was just a character that the creator just wanted it.
I mean, so far Neo, she's cool looking, but I haven't actually watched like the RWBY Chibi or whatever. But I mean, I think she gets way more airtime in that than she does in the actual show.
Well, not really, but that's only because they introduced Rowan and Neo like 2 episodes ago, so...
Okay, yeah. Like I said, I haven't actually watched it at all, so I don't know. But I know she has a pretty big following, but I also know that, yeah, they haven't done anything with her besides the fact that we know she fights. She seems like one of those characters that's kind of bored about fighting, but yeah, that's all we have for Neo, really.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Neo when it becomes her turn. We have to get through all of RWBY.
Okay. So what else do we have with RWBY?
We do have Wise, but again, there's not really anything wrong with like how things progress for her. I mean,
she's a very stereotypical character, and her development is very stereotypical. But like I said, it's not a bad thing, and it works really well for this particular.
You know what? So let's go off on a tangent then. Her sister.
Okay, her sister. To be honest, it was kind of. I felt like bringing her in when they did was kind of initially forced. I know why they did it,
yeah.
But it was just kind of her entire appearance she was more there for an introduction of other characters than she was there to be an actual character.
The thing that I like about her is, assuming this isn't bad characterization and they mean for the subtext to be there, she definitely comes across as a stern but still caring sister.
Yeah, I like the fact that she actually seems to legit care about what happens with Waze. She's very hard on her, and that's probably because of her own upbringing. And to be fair, it actually looks like Waze needs to have her sister be hard on her. It's the kind of person she is. If you spoil her and tell her everything's right, she's not going to try. But if you tell her you can do better, she will actually try to do better.
And also, you learn that her reason for joining the military is actually very similar to Weiss's decision to be in. She wanted to separate herself from the father. She just chose the military as her outlet.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously there's a lot of internal family issues with that one, and it looks like we might get some little more insight in that in season 4, because we do know that Waze is back with her family right now.
And I'm surprised they still have yet to explain how she got that scar, though.
Yeah. I'm sure it will come up. Unless it's going to be one of those things where this storyline they had for it just doesn't work now.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Or there's also the possibility that it was an example of, I just think it looks cool, let's worry about how to fit it into the story later.
Yeah, which I can't say anything, because as an artist I've had random parts of characters that were mostly drawn because I thought they looked cool or I accidentally messed up, and the best way to cover a mistake is to make it into something.
And hey, how many times how many scars do people have this just never comes up? Sometimes it's just not an interesting story. Sometimes it's just, I tripped and fell and hit my head.
Yeah, like, I would say, like, my big scar is I almost cut my thumb off, so that's a little more interesting. And then my little sister's big noticeable scar is she got hit with an ice block.
Yeah.
So, so it might not be anything. I think the fact that she has it over the other ones is kind of also just pointing out the fact that she seems perfect, but she has flaws.
So I think it's a stylist, an artistic thing.
I'm not saying they won't use it for something else, but at least at this point in time, that seems to be the biggest use of it, is the fact that you have this Miss Little Perfect character, and she's obviously has some temper issues, and even she has the arrogance issues too, but it's physically apparent she isn't perfect because of the scar.
Alright. Now, what about Blake then?
Oh, Blake. She kind of already did the thing that I think Ying is going to end up doing, where she went all like lone wolf for a while. I know she's coming in with a lot more issues than the other characters because of the fact that she is a cat girl, but
I really do find it, oh man, there's so many, the fact that she is a faunus actually raises a lot of problems, because of the way that she is so much of her behavior that just seems really out of place. And like, you remember that early scene when they were picking on the bunny, or Scarlet is her name? Velvet. So, where they were picking on her, and for somebody that was in a radical terrorist group defending the rights of your people, you sure are defending the rights of your people. Maybe do something about the bullying that's happening 10 feet from you.
I get that they were trying to keep the fact that Blake was a faunus from even the audience for quite some time. But
you wouldn't blow it if you just had her, be ticked that somebody was picking on someone because of their race.
as it is, the whole thing with the Faunuses in general,
Yeah.
there was a lot more tension early on, I feel, than there is later on. And I mean, I know, yeah, they're starting to come to understand them, but it was also just, it was kind of sudden and there wasn't a lot of lead into it.
And especially when it's pretty out in the open, she's still like such a, I don't know, it's, like I said, it's just a case of her hiding it. There's just so many. There's just examples like that. There's examples of her behavior seems a little erratic. Like the fact that she seems to go off and on about how upset she is about the plight of her people, kind of thing.
I mean, I think a lot of it also stems from the fact that even though she's a fauna, she's obviously lived in the short time she's been at Beacon and stuff, she's managed to live a fairly normal life and very typical schoolgirl training, huntress, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, I know that can have some conflicts, like make her personality a little conflicting, but yeah, I feel like if she's really having this internal struggle with herself, because it's not that she thinks faunus are wrong, she just thinks the radicals are wrong. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of that until suddenly, somebody shows up and then that's all she's about is like, let's defeat the radicals or let's, this is
slight off topic thing that when I first they first brought up the whole thing about the White Fang, I honestly thought it was Roman's gang doing their whole thing, just blaming him on them.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think that would have been a much more interesting take on it, and you wouldn't have had the issue I mentioned before of his gang suddenly disappearing from existence for no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, he still could have had like a lot of those deals with I guess it's probably because of the whole. I mean, I'm sure they initially planned on it just simply being the White Fang, and then because they kept Roman around, they decided to have him working with them.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways it made it a little more interesting because you have villains. It's that whole give them a common enemy and they'll become allies, but yeah, it's also could overcomplicate things too. Because we know we have at least three major factions if you break it down very, very vaguely. You have Beacon Academy and all the hunters, because obviously there are like four different countries or whatever, so you have a lot of different people, and even within there's different factions within that not all of them get along 100% perfectly. But then you had the White Fang, and then you had Cinnabar's group. Cinder. I always want to call her Cinnabar. I don't know why. But you have Cinder's group.
Because you love your little nicknames for characters. And
yeah, but I'm not sure why I would have given her one. I apparently did, though. Cinnabar. But yeah, you have her group. We know, we kind of have the idea that she at least is working under, she's getting something from somebody else. It's not just her being like, let's go stop the world. There's more behind it. But I feel like Roman doesn't really fit in well with those groups, even though I would consider him under Cinder's actual group.
I think by the looks of it, the way that they actually have it set up in the story is he's more a completely independent person that decided to work with them. From what I gathered from the interactions between Cinder and Roman, it seemed a lot like Roman understood that he's messing with, he's dealing with somebody that has a lot of power, and constantly. But at the same time, there's also that sense that, and I think they both realize, Roman has a limit. He's not really.
Oh yeah, for sure. He definitely isn't subservient to Cinder.
Yeah, because Cinder did seem, especially compared to like other people she works with, Cinder seemed a lot more like willing to bend or to be rational about choices. She doesn't really try to directly order Roman around.
Yeah, I mean, she'll hint at things she wants done, and that whole, if you don't do it, there might be trouble, but it's not an outright order, and I have a feeling even if he ended up not doing it exactly as she wanted, she probably would not do a lot in regards to repercussions for him.
Yeah, and that's a smart thing to do. I mean, because And that's what you want. You don't want just mindless minions that simply do what the person wants. You want there to be limitation. It's good that Roman is like, all right, fine, I'll do this, but if you keep making unreasonable demands, screw you.
Yeah, I was actually. It was funny. I was talking about with my mother about that in villains earlier with the whole leadership thing because too many villains to actually be successful, you can't do that whole fear mongering. You don't want people who only follow you because they're afraid that if they don't, you'll do something. You want ones who actually follow you because it is their choice.
There's actually another series that essentially the villain though brings up an excellent point. Control only through fear is ineffective because your control is taken away from you as soon as there's somebody that can initiate more fear into the person.
Yep. Or even somebody who can eliminate, because think about it, a lot of these people will fear, the Overlord until somebody overthrows the Overlord, and then it's not really that scary because, maybe you can't beat him, but somebody else can.
Roman was siding with her only because he viewed it as the best option. Mm-hmm. If suddenly things turned around and, if Cinder was defeated, I doubt Roman would still have gone along with her plans. I think it's like, well, I'm out.
Yeah, Roman is definitely in it for Roman. And he might have another thing going on. For all we know, he might be working with even another faction we don't know about. But I feel like a lot of it is he's like a mercenary. Where he's
Roman is definitely his own thing. If we want to talk about a kind of good but very subtle interaction, is the interactions he has with Neo, because the only time he ever shows any concern whatsoever for anyone is when something happens to her.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's why he loses when you get down to it. Because if I recall the scene correctly, he was about to flat out murder RWBY.
Yep.
There's no reason she got out of that okay.
And then
I'm guessing again with Neo because Neo was another character that was kind of just shoved in there. But that's another character where I'm not sure you can really confirm her being dead.
Yeah, I don't know on her. Like I said, I personally don't think Roman is, not because I can totally see how it was obvious that he died, but at the same time, I just feel like as a character, he's gonna be one of those that no matter how many times you kill him, he won't die.
You think it's too much of a waste to just have him die?
Yeah. Well, also even like I said, even the way his particular death was handled. It just felt very anticlimactic and almost comical. And for the scene, it was good to have a feel-good moment in there, but to put it almost outright comedy was kind of a killer to the scene, and that also didn't feel very final to me.
The theory that was presented to me is that the scene was supposed to be ironic. He did this whole thing in order to try to survive, and the collateral damage of what he initiated is what ultimately kills him.
Yeah, which, I can see that, but like I said, I feel it's still too weak to have been his final scene. Not saying that it won't pan out and be, if he doesn't come back, I won't totally be surprised, but if he does come back, I also won't be like, I didn't see that coming.
The only justification I can really see where I think his death, the way it happened, would be positive is if Neo survived and they used that as character development for her.
Yeah, because she could go on a vengeance quest. The thing is, at this point, because that stuff happened so far into the end of season 3, it was right near the ending, we didn't really have any time to watch other reactions, especially to Roman and Neo, so we don't have anybody else's opinion on it, like any other character. So that's it's kind of at this point really hard to judge what they were doing, what they actually intended for with his death as far as plot relation. Because yes, the irony thing isn't a plot thing though; that's more of a scene thing. What was the actual end goal with his plot, with killing him?
I personally think it is simply, we need to write this character out of this story so he dies.
I figure when season 4 comes out, I don't think his death and all his stuff will be answered early on in it, but I do think we'll have more of a wrap up to him, which will be good, because if they don't, there's going to be a problem.
So you're saying what would upset you more than anything is Roman is never mentioned again throughout the rest of the series?
I feel, like I said, in my opinion, all the deaths at the end of, Penny's had more final feel to and more wrap up for her. I can totally see how she'd come back because of what she is. But I feel like all the deaths that happened, like in the end, the last couple episodes, were it doesn't upset me that they died. Now, don't get me wrong, I love some of these characters. It upsets me that none of them were very like none of them were super climactic. None of them were very like finalized. There was nothing that happened after them.
Well, yeah, with Roman, my bigger thing isn't so much that he died as much as his death was it wasn't satisfying death. It's just he's dead now. But if now, you know what, I'll save that for the end because I do want to address something else because it's related to more to Blake than anything else, and that was Adam.
Adam, I don't know. I don't really have a good opinion of him, and not because of he's a villain, just because once again he's not really in the plot line that much.
Well, it's initially from before the ending, like the last, say, 3 episodes, you know, around there. What we do get from his characterization is that he is a fanatic.
Yeah.
You know, when he is approached by Cinder initially, his whole thing is purely, no, we are fighting for a cause. We're not going to be just your mercenaries for your freaking revenge scheme kind of thing. You know?
He's very much obsessed with his one long-term goal.
Except when you get the last few episodes where suddenly it becomes, no, I just want to make my ex suffer.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you do have those people that when they see, like, there are people who are triggers for other people. And I get that that's what they're trying to do with Blake to Adam, but I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's changing the persona of Adam that they were trying to establish too much.
Yeah, it turned him from this morally gray, you know, the road to hell paved with good intentions kind of thing, to cliche psycho ex-boyfriend.
And I mean, the thing with it even if he thought Blake was a good fighter and was sad to lose her because of that, it's like you have all these other fighters who could take her place easy enough.
Well, it's because they were in a relationship. I mean,
yeah, but I mean, that's just it. It's kind of like he keeps trying to stir her up to rejoin, and he's never, at least I didn't feel he ever was like, rejoin and date me again. It was more like, you should be still following our cause because you're one of us. So
really, it seemed a lot more to me like, I don't care, you hurt me, so now I'm going to hurt you back.
Well, in the final episodes, yes, but like when he first started coming back, like the first
when he first did that, yes, that's what it definitely seemed like.
And I mean, it seems like he's still trying to use that excuse even in the later ones, like, hey, you need to join our cause because this is how weak the humans are. But yeah, it comes out to being like, well, you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt your new favorite person.
Yeah, he flat out says, no, this has nothing to do with our cause, I just want to make you suffer.
Yeah, and that was
I'm not saying it's necessarily unrealistic from a character development standpoint. I'm just saying it's bad character development.
I think they could have done a lot more with him. And I mean, I know once again he's just coming into this as far as becoming a major player in the story. So we're gonna have a lot of stuff that they can do with him. But it's one of those questions of, will they actually do stuff with him?
And when we're talking about that whole fight also, the fact that Yang gets taken out like so quickly is it's so anticlimactic. There's like nothing there. It's just, you know, sword swipe there, fight's over.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like if Blake and even some of the other people, I feel would be able to be on par with Adam. They might not win, but they should be able to at least fend him off for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, an example of why another thing that Roman was good at is he seems like somebody that was really difficult to fight against, but not insurmountable. He didn't need to curb stomp them to show that he was a good fighter.
The main reason he ended up being so, I personally felt he was difficult to fight, it wasn't even that he was stronger than a lot of them, it's just because he is so persistent and he is very calculating in his mythology. He's not just attacking. There's strategy going on at every angle, and it, paired up against somebody like Ruby who doesn't really strategize, yeah, she's gonna have the underhand even if she's stronger because she can't outthink him.
Well, he also tends to primarily focus on defense. He never really attacks unless he himself has no threat. The only time I have ever seen him get hits outside of that one fight that he had with Blake was when somebody basically blindsides him.
Yeah.
Like, if he's aware and you're fighting like one-on-one with him, or even two-on-one, if he's aware of where you are and what you're doing, you can't touch him.
Well, I mean, I think that's another part of his strategy, because if, in his case, if he realizes he's weaker than some of these people, which he might, one of the best ways to beat them is to not ever have to attack until they've run out of attacks. Or if you have more stamina and can keep defending, do that as long as you can, and then wait for the perfect opening and strike if you need to.
I mean, the only reason that Blake did beat him is because she was using dust to augment her abilities in ways that he had never seen before.
Yeah.
And each time it was something completely different. Possibly Blake was aware that the same trick isn't going to work twice against an enemy like this.
Yeah, which she's actually one of the more intelligent as far as strategy-wise for battling with the RWBY group, so it wouldn't totally surprise me.
Well, at least I'll have some level of strategy, except for Yang, which is punch it until it's dead.
Yeah, which I have a feeling she'll actually have to have more strategy now.
Yeah.
I mean, still, in some of the cases, she has been able to use her teammates. Like, it wasn't just, I need to punch this, I'm going to run up and punch it. It's like, okay, hey, can you make me, like, an ice thing to throw me up there so then I can punch it?
Now, if we're going to... Now, on the topic of continuity errors, though.
Okay.
I have some theories about some possible explanations of it, but I'm saying as strictly as it is presented, Cinder's power doesn't really add up. We see Cinder fighting with the Maiden, and said Maiden has some level of difficulty fighting with all these people.
Yeah.
I don't see how... Alright, so if you have that, then it doesn't seem like this power's that massive of a power-up.
I mean, I get that it was 3 against 1, but you're talking somebody who would be considered like god level to this type of world, and yeah, she was overthrown by 3 tricky humans.
Yeah, now, if it's so, alright, so when you do see Cinder and she gets this power, okay?
Mm-hmm.
She is like, complete and total god tier, alright?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be that much of a power difference, I mean, it just doesn't seem like it would, like the level of augmentation doesn't make sense here. She just got this power.
Yeah.
This is somebody who has been using this power for presumably decades, or at least years, a significant amount of time. And before Cinder got the power, her and 2 other people were able to beat her.
And I mean, I get that she was obviously underestimating them and not expecting an ambush because of Emerald's illusion.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you would still think that she would have some kind of protection in place. And then again, I don't understand why she was wandering alone anyways.
Yeah.
You would think that if they were this worried about these people, that they would have, even if they didn't want to have somebody with them, you would think that they would have somebody, like even at least one, like call them a handmaiden, if you will, somebody with them, and they wouldn't be traveling.
Well, I mean, you do see Crow show up. Maybe that's what he was supposed to be doing.
Maybe. Crow was just too drunk to do anything.
Yeah,
I love Crow, but yeah, he has issues.
A little side thing that did kind of bother me. So you remember when Mercury informs the others that Crow was there?
Yeah.
He said that he used a scythe. His weapon never turned into a scythe.
There was one time that he used it. I saw it turn into a scythe.
He started turning it into a scythe, and never was actually a scythe. And in any case, Mercury left before that happened.
Yeah. Mercury's just that awesome, he knows. He's like, okay, he was building it, it's gotta be a scythe. It was 2/3 of the way done. Comes back and it's a bridge. Oh.
They're probably gonna, Mercury seems like a flat-out sociopath.
Yeah, he really is.
I suspect Emerald, they're trying to put more, like, potentially even a redemption arc thing with her.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I can totally see that. Because she is... I mean, she obviously has issues with people, is what she says. But she's the one, right now, she can mix with society the easiest. And she also... She seems to have the most humanity in her.
Hmm. Yeah, because she's actually bothered by all the death and destruction and everything. And they only do it like it also sounds like she had been horribly abused by Cinder too during this whole thing.
Yep. So I could see her turning on it because once again, it's the whole fear thing. Once you get over that fear, there's nothing to hold you back.
Yeah. Let's see what other big. Well, we've already kind of mentioned. All right, let's go with the big death. Because I know that you're particularly upset with that one.
Yep.
All right, so what bothered you most about Pyrrha's death?
Like I said, it was every death that happened in the end, I just feel was too quick. There wasn't enough build up. And I mean, I know, I totally see what you said when you were talking about how I would probably they were leading up signs to it. The problem is there just wasn't enough reaction, and I know it's like right at the end of the last episode kind of stuff, but it seems like they're just too casually brushing it off. Even when Ruby brings it up, she gets upset, but it's not. That's like the only reaction you see, and it's so minute because I mean I know she's worried about Yang and there's the other stuff going on, but it's like there is no time for anybody to really have a set reaction on it. And by the time you see Jean and the rest of Juniper again, they've had months to finalize this in their own head. So they just, to me, it wasn't like they didn't give the audience enough time to actually have some kind of closure with it.
Yeah, it's easy to time skip and have, say, the characters went through the grieving process, but you haven't allowed the audience to do the same.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like, okay, I do agree that Pyrrha had a lot of... She was the closest thing to an overpowered character in there. She wasn't, but there was a lot of times where...
No.
It was a lot more just the way that the particular fights they chose to put her in, she was overpowered. But yeah, obviously, when she got put into fights that with stronger people...
You know,
she
if you want to talk about non-consistent power levels.
Yeah.
Why was she even, like, in any way holding her own against Cinder in the first place? I mean, we saw Cinder go against Osmond, like...
Yeah.
And beat him.
I mean, and I know you had the whole thing with Pyrrha, that a whole emotional... They do that a lot in any kind of series, where it's like when you're running high on emotions, you're going to be more powerful. But I think that was more for our sake too. But yeah, it's just, I feel like the whole way they handled that was just badly.
It looked like Pyrrha was going out of her way to find a reason to die.
Yeah,
that's what it felt to me.
And like I said, I'm still not 100% convinced her death is final. She's one of the ones I'm leaning more towards, yes, it is. But until they give me that closure, I personally am just...
Her body was reduced to ash. I don't know how much more closure, how much more
what I'm talking about, the thing is,
dead.
remember, they started transferring Fall into her, or Autumn into her. They obviously never finished, but we don't know if she got any of that power. So that also might have been a reason why she was able to stand up as well as she was. And maybe, yes, Cinder obviously burned her, but if she's Fall, like, we don't know what each of their powers are. A lot of times fire would be associated with summer, but it also could be associated with autumn.
No. Actually, my theory is that this isn't the first time that Cinder has done this, and she already had, before she did this, she already had a Maiden's power. That's my theory. Plus, as you said, her thing's fire, and it's much more of a summer thing.
Yeah.
So, my personal fan theory is she's already murdered the Maiden in the summer.
Yeah, which I could see.
Down the line.
But I mean, that's just it. Autumn could also be a fire power, which is why I didn't question it. But that's also the fact that if she had a body left behind, I think I would have been able to take it as a more final thing. But because she turned into cinders, and into ashes. And that's what we're kind of led to believe is the elemental association for Autumn. There's a chance that was part of her power. And you know how these people will be in series when if they do come back after death, you have a couple different routes they can go, where they're staying away from people because they're trying to do stuff, or the whole they don't remember anything because they're not the same person they were. I'm not sure where it's going to go with that. I could see, like I said, I can also see a very high potential for her not coming back whatsoever. I just feel like it was kind of a cop-out with the way they did it.
Yeah, but I think that's more bad writing than anything else.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that it could be potentially really good development for Jean, but I'm not sure if they're actually going to do it well.
I think they hurt John's development more by killing her off than anything else.
Because she was actually really good for his development.
Yeah, exactly. That's just it. I mean, I do know the whole trope of the mentor has to die kind of thing, but
you're not talking about a mentor who's like 20 or 40 years older. You're talking about a mentor who's the same age. And she's not the only mentor he has.
Yeah. Now, this brings us to the, before I get into that, though, I do have to mention, like I said, I think it felt to me like she was trying to find her. Why would she run away from the fight initially when there was somebody else that was fighting her just to go back?
Well, I know part of it is, in her case, at least what I saw that as, is because it's kind of a struggle between doing what you're told and doing what you're right. And she's, what you believe is right. She's basically very straight. Right, I'll do what I'm told. I can see
the choice, but it's still just phenomenally stupid.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't, because that's just it. She was told to get out of there. She did initially, and I know a lot of it in her case was she wanted to protect Jean, but at the same time...
She wasn't protecting Jean. Cinder wasn't paying attention to him.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a lot of that was Peter thing, and I think that was why she wanted to remove him from the situation. But yeah, at the same time, her going up as Cinder when she did was really stupid, and I would usually thought Peter as being somebody better than that and not being as such a slave to emotions like that.
Yeah. And, speaking of, when she unintentionally killed Penny, seems a little... I mean, she was basically given an illusion of her powers, like, messing up and stuff like that. Then you think you would throttle them down, not up. And if you're able to manipulate metal, doesn't that directly imply that you have to be able to sense where the metal is?
The thing is, obviously they weren't going with that as an option. But the way they've handled her power, she seems not to actually have a sense of it. It's more of an understanding. Like, there's metal in this thing and there's metal in this, but most people... I mean, technically there is metal in human bodies, just not to the extent, at least that she could use at that time. And obviously it was more for the shock factor, and it was one of those humility things for Peta herself, where she won a fight, but at what cost kind of thing, and that was good development for her. But it's weird, and they kind of had her go through that whole thing where a lot of times, think about it, when your car doesn't start, as a human, isn't your nature to keep turning the key?
True.
That's a very, very normal human reaction, is to overdo something versus tone it down. But once again, I agree with you, where I think Peta would be more likely to actually have toned it down, because she is a very smart and usually very calm person. She's very much a warrior type.
Now, overall, the thing with the deaths in this series, I compare it to Death Note. I get the decision to suddenly begin killing people off because of the idea of things are now totally serious.
And this is a war story. This isn't, this isn't, we have magic story. It's an actual battle.
I'm okay with the idea of that. The issue is the same issue that you had with Death Note, is you just killed off pretty much all of the most interesting characters in your series.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you it was like chapter 52 or 57. It was one of those two. It was when when the most interesting character in the story bit it in Death Note, and I read it because I was kind of interested in where it went, but yeah, I would definitely say the first half was way better, and I don't want to see RWBY follow that same.
Yeah, and again, and to keep the comparison going, sometimes it's not even directly. Like I get there's something to be said about developing Jean now that Pyrrha is dead. But his interactions with Pyrrha were like the most interesting thing about him.
Yeah. I mean, I love Jean, but yes, he really didn't have a whole lot going on. And I mean, a lot of that was because his character was somebody who has these huge, like, huge, really big people to live up to, and it's hard when he is a klutz and he's not really good at things, and he does his best, but he also is constantly second guessing himself. And I mean, that's kind of his charm point, is the fact that he might be the smartest person in the room, but you'll never know it because he doesn't think he is.
Yeah.
And Pyrrha was really good for that because she encouraged him to use more of what he thought, to voice his opinions, even if they are stupid. If you never say them, you'll never know if they actually could have been right. And she was very gentle with him, where even Nora and Ren will sometimes react a little more negatively. Not bad way, but you know, they'll just, the look on their faces sometimes, especially Ren's, is like, why would you do that? Why would you say that?
And they're obviously going for the melodrama of they finally like have feelings for each other and then one of them dies kind of thing. But you know, that's just, it feels more like that's just doing that for that melodrama. It would have been much more satisfying if you allowed that relationship to actually develop, you know, past that initial stage and then killed one of them off.
Yeah, because they obviously had a relationship building, and I mean, we kind of got the feeling that Pyrrha had the feelings first for him because
I got that impression this first time.
It was really early on.
Yeah,
because a big part of it is the fact that you have a girl who's always been treated as this high-class warrior and seen as nothing else, and then you have a guy who's just like, hey, what's up, and totally ignores the fact that she's supposed to be this big, intimidating warrior. He doesn't see her as that. He sees her as a pretty girl in school. And then eventually, once they join teams, he sees her as, you know, one of his really useful teammates. It's so
it also like there's a bit of a sense of the reason I'm not thinking of you like that is in the whole, you are so far beyond me, you know, I'm not even going to give it a thought about the potential kind of deal.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that was really brought up in the episode with the dance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why he was so oblivious to her feelings, is mostly, well, you know, she is like the most popular girl in school. Obviously, she's not going to be interested. I mean, I'm not sure what that says about his opinion of Weiss then, but...
Well, I think a lot of it is with Weiss is, yeah, she was pretty, but power level, he probably felt she was more... And think about it, Weiss's reactions to a lot of things were very normal, whereas Pyrrha was so elegant and so, like, closed with her emotions. It was really hard to gauge her, and you saw her as a very mature character versus Weiss, which was, she was a girl. She was the exact age you think she is with her reaction. She wasn't somebody that was intimidating because of her personality. She was just a little annoying brat.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna need to see how some of this stuff turns out. It's up until like the last 3 episodes, I'm like, I'm not sure I like where this direction this is going anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm hoping there's going to be some cool things in the 4th season. I do like all the character designs so far for like the updated ones.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen. I don't think they've released Jean's yet, and they have only released Yang's.
Except for Yang.
No, they released her a new one.
Oh, they updated. All right, because
so
they initially saw it like, oh man, this is all.
They originally was like sweats and a jacket, and I was really disappointed. And then they what some of the newer promotional art they've put out is they have a back shot of her looking over her shoulder, and she has more of like the like a full jacket with a trench coat style jacket, if you will, with like the bottom tails and stuff going on. But
does it look like she got her arm back?
She does not have an arm in any of the pictures I can tell.
Right. I'm honestly hoping that they just leave it gone, and that's it.
We'll see. I mean, like I said, I totally see where it would be an amazing thing to do a prosthetic arm, but I also think it would be really good to have a character that takes responsibility and learns how to live without it. But with the character being Yang, particularly, I don't see her personality allowing for that.
Yeah. My money is on them sticking with just Ruby with Team Juniper for a while.
Yeah, well, we know. I'm pretty sure at the beginning it's going to be a lot of that early on. I don't see if they were going, if as long as they do good storytelling, you won't see that group getting broken up within like the first couple episodes. I mean, these seasons are
it would be bad storytelling if they put if literally the last scene was the four of them walking off together, and then they're not together when the new season starts.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they're immediately broken up.
Yeah, and we know Crow went with them too because he followed after them. But I don't see. I think I see it as being kind of like a quest to get Waze back with them. I think Blake is gonna be doing her own thing. I think actually who's gonna have to bring Blake back is gonna have to be Yang or vice versa. I don't see either one of those coming back with Ruby directly. They're gonna have to have one of the other two, like, because they're basically the two that are partnered up. So if Yang gets over it on her own, she's gonna have to bring Blake back, but Blake might actually have to step up and be the one who brings Yang back this time, which would be cool because it's kind of a reversal of their normal roles.
Before I forget, we also have Yang's mom, Raven, I think it was. Maybe. I remember, I think there was a Blackbird thing going with with her and Crow.
Yeah, it could be. I don't actually remember hearing her name. I'm sure I did, but remember I marathoned it while sewing, so that says a lot.
You know what? I'll just look it up, okay? That's what the internet's for.
My main issue with her right now is the fact that she really looks like Velvet in Tales of Berseria, and I know RWBY was probably a character in development way before that. But because I'd been following so many clips of Berseria before it came out, and then that, I can't unsee that connection, even though I know she's supposed to look like Yang with black hair. I'm making a totally non-RWBY connection with her.
Yeah, it's Raven.
Okay.
Alright, I mean, admittedly, they have not really seen too much of the character, but I just don't understand her. Like, her thought processes seem completely messed up here. I mean, the first time you actually see her, she comes out of nowhere, saves Yang, and then just leaves, and basically leaves with a message of, everybody gets one.
Yeah. She does not seem like a very... I mean, is somebody who's supposed to be the mother of somebody, and I know you have those characters that, like, I don't know why they do that. Why they take
those characters... come back, I mean, yeah, if she just doesn't care, or she has higher priorities, why would she come back at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's
so random why she did.
Once you put that whole motherly thing on a character, you don't have a lot of parents that are going to be like, oh, I had a kid, that was an accident. I mean, as much as people will joke about it or talk about how, well, we didn't mean to have the third kid, you don't have them abandoning them for years and coming back and saving them in the nick of time. It makes you think that she has at least been watching in a lot of these situations, and she may have been involved with a lot more of them than we know.
In the defense of the way that they have characterized it, it is nice that at least everyone, like, including her brother, doesn't think too highly of her for doing that.
Yeah, but we also know that there's a lot of people who don't think highly of Crow because of his doing similar stuff where he went off and it didn't. They obviously have their high ranking, and I don't even know what the main organization is called that they work for, the one with everybody in it. So they're very high ranking members, or at least seen as very powerful allies. And I mean, I'm assuming she's still working for them?
I don't think she's working for them as much as has the same goal as them. It seemed very much like she's off doing her own thing of her own accord.
Well, yeah, but
it's in line with what they're trying to accomplish.
I could also see it being she's working with them, and it's just she's so far off the grid that they don't even realize it. Because I mean, I know nobody.
That's definitely what Crow's whole thing is, and that's what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, but that's just it. It doesn't mean that she's not doing something the same. I mean, if she did go rogue like that, I'm sure they're going to give us an explanation for why. and it better just not be because I felt like it. It should be more well thought out and more story wise. So we'll see. She's obviously going to be a player because she did show up now and has had a little more screen time. So she's officially, joined into the plot.
She's another character. There's going to be so much that just depends on. Maybe they can come back and find some way to justify it, even if it is a retcon kind of thing.
I do hope that even if she comes back, that Yang isn't quick to forgive her. I mean, I know Yang has like this idolized version.
She might be just for that exact reason. If she's that obsessed with finding her mother, maybe I don't care. I just want to see my mother, screw what she's done.
Yeah, I would like to, but I would personally like to just see her be one of those like, yeah, I found my mother, and now that I found her, I realize she caused me a lot of shit. I'm not gonna sit here and, I don't expect her to be negative to her the whole time.
I don't think you can even do that in season 4 because, that's especially considering what's happened to her. So much of her that has been her driving motivation. Like the whole reason she became a hunter's wing is, truthfully, because she's looking for her mom.
Yeah. Well, I see.
So she finds her mom, that kind of takes away her motivation, and after what she's been through, you can't do that.
I don't see Yang doing much in 4th season until later on in it, because, like I said, if I were to actually be the one writing the story, the way I would pace it is, the first at least half of it is all going to be RWBY with the remains of Juniper, and then maybe bring Weiss in shortly after that if they do the whole let's get her back quest or whatever, but then have Blake be the one to bring Yang back into it, and that's not going to be easy because Blake is also off on her own, so something would have to trigger her to go and find it, even if it's
I did
RWBY
find it a little weird that Blake just kind of bolted like immediately. That seems odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, because we get the opinion, like at least with Weiss, it's kind of one of those where she didn't really have any other place to go, and I mean, I know a lot happened, and I don't know if RWBY made any effort to contact her because that wasn't clear, or vice versa. But yeah, Blake just basically jump shipped and ran. And even if she's like, well, I need to get revenge on Adam, which may be what is driving her right now, she's already kind of done that as far as character, and you would think she would handle a little differently now. But we'll see.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can think of where that's the only justification I can really think of. They might not go that route though, but
maybe she's on the search for the best ice cream cone.
That or it's a case of I can't be with anyone because he's just going to murder them kind of thing.
Yeah, which is another possibility. Although
that doesn't really rub me the right way either.
Because once again, that was how Blake was at the beginning. Her whole reason for not really getting close to people wasn't even that she was a faunus and they were humans. It was that she had been betrayed and she didn't want to go through that again. So it was a little different, but to go through something so similar twice would be really bad for a character. Although humans have done it, like actual people have done that, so.
Yeah, but we're looking at fiction here.
Mm-hmm. When does season 4 even start?
Soon.
I know it's
a week from now.
You know me, I'm not going to be able to stream it for a while unless it actually goes up on one of the things I can stream through my game system.
Probably not.
Yeah, so I'll unfortunately have to wait for it all to get out and put up on Crunchy or something, or Netflix. Well, I think Netflix only had up to season 2. I watched it on Crunchy, so.
Oh, yeah, Netflix does. Let's see. Oh, found little notes that I had for it.
Uh-oh.
I think we covered pretty much everything, though. Oh man, that really just does bother me, the fact that you see the Mercury just walks around for no reason. It's not like he was doing anything either. He was just taking a stroll.
Well, he might have had an actual goal he was going towards, but RWBY kind of stopped it. So we don't know. And like I said, that whole particular scene, in my opinion, it's one of those, It's
does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's basically the creator's way of saying, in case you guys didn't realize it, here is what actually is going on. But yeah, him and RWBY running into each other like that could have been potentially a lot of stuff to do with the plot. And instead it was just more of a delay.
Near as I can tell, also, even though they basically, RWBY did find out that, Mercury wasn't actually injured. Yet, nearest we can tell, at no time did she go to Yang and go, hey, you didn't actually cripple that guy, by the way.
And I mean, I know in the last time when she tried to talk to her, Yang was being all like, no, just leave me alone. I'm going to sit here and angrily stare at this window.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I just feel there was no recourse from that. There should have been some kind of repercussion from that, and there wasn't. And I mean, I get that it was... It was more of something for the audience's benefit, but then again, I feel as a creator myself, as I hate it when you have to spell out something for your, like, that so simple for your audience, because that was so obvious. But I do know with RWBY, you have one of my students she ended up starting my manga class a week late, so I had to go cover story stuff with her privately. The story that we outlined for her practice story was actually RWBY, because she knew it. And she's got to be like 11. So you do have a really young audience in there. And maybe as somebody who is not 11 anymore, I know when I was 11, all those years ago, I would have been able to figure that out myself. But I also know that the way our entire media is handled now versus how it was back when we were kids is a totally different beast, too.
There was something else that's kind of, I guess compared to everything else we mentioned, it's absurdly minor, but it was something that kind of... Okay. So, you remember the Paladin Nest? The big robot?
Yes. I was like, I had to think about that. I'm like, I'm sure they were there somewhere.
Alright, so, two things about those. Alright. Now, we see Roman piloting one.
Mm-hmm.
And we also saw the presentation where they're talking about them. And they specifically say the reason why they developed them is because sometimes you can't have android, robots on the field. Sometimes you still need a human presence. So we give them this big robot tank thing to pilot, okay?
Yeah.
So why the heck did the virus control them when they're supposed to be piloted by someone in the first place?
Well, I mean, they obviously do have a computer system in them. And it was... the easiest explanation for it is the fact that it was plot related. They sometimes will put things in just for the sake of plot, and you have to take it with a grain of salt, because you could sit there and try to make an explanation for everything, but sometimes you don't need it because it progressed the story in the way they were trying to get it to progress. And I think what they're trying to do a lot with that is obviously this world that runs on the equivalent of magic has they're more concerned with technology than they are magic, like as far as the potential dangers. And that's kind of a reversal of our society where, I mean, obviously we don't have people wielding fire and stuff. But even back in olden days with like the witch trials and stuff, where we're all like, technology is fine, but you do anything that can't be explained, it's like, nope, not having any of that. So it's kind of a reversal there. I mean, I don't think there was an actual reason besides the fact, like I said, they do have a computer in them, and
if I completely forgot about that point, and just went, we just wanted them to fight giant robots, so giant robots there.
Hey, I bet you Pierce could hack it.
Now. A little nitpicky, I guess, but they put a lot of build-up to Velvet's ability and don't really do anything with it.
Yeah, the only time she really got to do anything with it was that one fight.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think Velvet... I really like her as a character, because you don't get a lot of her, but she's a very good side character, because when she's in there, she's not distracting from the story. And she might not necessarily always add to it, but she's useful in the fact that she helps carry it through things and has helped transition scenes. But yeah, it's like they bring up all this build-up, and it looks like she could potentially be super powerful. However, even her own team is limiting her.
Well, it seemed like the implication is... Or... that there's some limiting factor to her. Like, I guess maybe she can only use it so frequently. Because when she was originally going to do it at the end of season 2, use her ability, she says, oh, you've been saving that all semester, don't waste it on this, which kind of implies either that there's a reason she has to save it, like maybe she can only use the technique once, or the other possible explanation is they were trying to save it as a trump card kind of thing.
My way,
I don't see why they save it as a trump card.
See, what I thought of it as more being as, okay, you know how in Overwatch when you get attacked you build up stuff to do your ultimate.
Yeah.
I see it as more of that, where it's one of those where she has to build up to use it. I mean, it might be an issue where, like, because once again, we didn't see what happened with her after the fight, so we don't know. Maybe she uses it and then is in a coma for, like, a couple weeks. We don't know what the repercussions from it are. So there's a chance it's something more like that. I am actually seeing it personally more as something where she probably has to build up to it. So, like, maybe every time she fights, or even maybe it's just a natural build-up where she can only build it up, like, every several months or whatever. But I don't see it as being something she can only use once. If it is, that would be really bad on their part, because then what is she going to do from this point on?
Well, I mean, maybe she only uses a particular technique, once, but in any case, when you actually do see her, and she actually does use her ability, and she doesn't really do too much with it. She takes out, like, one of those giant mechs, and that was it.
Yeah, and I mean, you would. I mean, I kind of got the impression that she was probably still fighting afterwards, but I don't know how much of it was her and how much of it was her other teammates. She kind of did that whole, riled the troop thing, if you will, where she got them the moral boost that they needed with her doing that alone, and it kind of rejuvenated the other characters, including, like, her own teammates and stuff. So even if they are technically weaker by the look of it, now they're feeling a lot more like, yay, we can do this.
Well, hopefully they'll do more with her after all that build up and everything.
I would like to see them do more with a lot of the different side teams. Not all at the same time, like, take different storylines and, throw a side team in for that story just to build them, because that was kind of their build up in that one, but I'd like to see them do a little more with even that team.
Yeah. We did mention it earlier, but I think it's something that needs to be brought back up. When you saw the other students bullying her, you'd think this school would be a lot stricter on bullying, since you're essentially training people to be, high-end mercenaries.
Yeah, but, well, I mean, to be fair, it's just like bullying in a lot of schools. They say that they have no bully tolerance, but how many teachers will actually go to, how many times does somebody bully somebody in front of, like, a teacher and stuff, and how many children will see bullying in school and don't report it?
Right, but we're talking about a scenario where they're teaching said bullies how to murder things.
Okay, my battery on my computer is almost out. I didn't bring my cord up.
Alright. But I'm just saying, you'd think that, I don't know, it just seems like that's the kind of person you wouldn't want in a school that's specifically dedicated to, training somebody's combat capabilities.
Oh yeah, I agree. I would have thought they would have been vetted better, but then
it's not like he's doing it, like, hidden away from things. He's openly belligerent, openly racist. He's not the kind of person that you'd probably want in your, strict pseudo-military organization.
Although, once again, that whole setup of that was for our benefit more than actually story, because it kind of gave you a glimpse into Blake's character, like, you noticed it bothered her, but you didn't really understand why. Because most people would just go the whole, well, she's being, they're bullying it, versus, oh, well, she's upset because that is what she is.
Well, no, we saw a lot more. We saw John react more negatively to the bullying than we saw her, which is one of the things that bothered me.
I mean, like I said, though, you did
Blake should have been more upset.
You saw her notice it, and, like, I mean, it's... And they were also, it's another way to present the way faunas and human live together, so I can see why they used it, but yeah, I can see your complaints with it too.
Well, In any case, I think we have significantly railed this thing into the ground about as much as we could. Admittedly, some of it is just stuff that might end up being resolved.
I'm hoping. You know me, I love everything to be resolved and wrapped up nicely. I don't care if the resolution is horribly sad or horribly just not anything people are happy with. I would just rather see it resolved in any way than just left open.
Yeah, the worst thing that they can do with a lot of those plot threads, and that's my biggest concern with what happened with Roman, is just nope, just gone now.
Yeah,
just gone.
I mean, I've got based on the stuff I've seen from season 4, I've got some pretty decent expectations. Nothing too high, but you know, it's one of those. I've loved the first 3 seasons. It's really good cast and everything like that. So, I'm hoping that it keeps living up to my expectations.
Right. So, for our next discussion, then, you wanted to you want me to look at and then go over Infinite Stratos?
Yes, you need to. That's the series I absolutely love, but it's horrible.
Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, only season 2 is on Crunchyroll, so you will have to find season 1 for other means.
What? Why they do something like that?
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I started watching it, and then I was like, I have no idea what's going on. So I ended up borrowing the DVDs from Dan to watch it, so...
Sure, I'll figure something out. And at some point, we definitely have to go over why Sword Art Online is just complete garbage.
I should probably watch more of that for that, too.
Oh, man.
That's another one of those series I rage quit pretty early on, because I read the novels, so...
Yeah, it's one of those scenarios where you couldn't even get past, like, the first half of it, and does it get better? No.
Yeah,
no.
I never...
For reading was the good part.
I never made it to Leafa in the anime.
Oh, I've seen some of the stuff from, like, what they're currently doing, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is...
Then again, to be fair, it's basically about novel... I guess it would have been, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think novel 8 was where I kind of got, like, as starting in novel 9, I was like, what are you guys doing? Please stop.
I get the impression that after, like, the first season or 2 of the anime, it completely jumps off the rails from the novel, because I have a hard time believing the novel goes into hardcore harem storylines.
Some of those are from side novels and not actual, like, legit inline novels. Because you know how they'll do that. They'll have, like, a book series and then do, like, a spin-off novel. Well, they have several of those for SAO. And I know at least one of the storylines, because Dan told me about the Excalibur storyline was from a side one. And they put it in, like, the major stuff in season 2. And he's like, that was a side story. What is it doing in there? But yeah, we will save that for another time.
We should probably save that for, like, a special, because I'm sure it's going to be, like, a 3-hour rant on...
It will be horrible.
I could seriously go on a good, like, half hour on episode 1. Maybe episode 2. Probably episode 1, episode 2, yeah.
Yeah. Alright, well, my computer is yelling at me. I'm at 7% battery.
Alright, well, then I will... we'll set up a day to just, like, do this on a more regular basis, and then we'll get that done. Alright, so thanks, anybody, for listening. I'm not sure if I'll even leave this in, but goodbye.
Bye.